This is a topic that has come up some in a roundabout way over the last week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so. Kind of when all this stuff has been going on with Florida and Dan Mullen, and the losses, and sort of the really down year that they're having. Uh, and then you look sort of at the other two big schools in the state, Miami and Florida State, right? If Florida, Miami, and Florida State were stocks, and you had to invest in one of those stocks today for a return over the next 3 to 5 years, which one would you invest in? Now, when Dan Mullen got the job at Florida, and really his first couple of years there, I don't really think it can be argued. Florida was the best of those three programs. They made, three New Year's Six Bowls in a row, won a division. It was going pretty good. Florida State, of course, has been way down. Florida State has probably been the worst of those three programs over the last 4 to 5 years. And Miami has sort of floated in the middle. They've had a couple of good years, a couple of bad years, and kind of have just floated in the middle. But if you had to invest in one of them today for a return on that investment 3 to 5 years down the road, which of those three programs would you put your money in? Well, let's start with Florida State. Like I said, I think they've clearly been the worst of those three programs over the last 3 to 5 years, right? But where are they at now? Well, in my opinion, they have the most stable coaching situation of the three programs. Over half the Miami fans that I know and read online and stuff like that seem to want Manny Diaz fired. Florida fan base seems to be split about 50-50 on Dan Mullen. But Norvell at Florida State, he's in pretty good shape. Now, earlier this year, maybe that wasn't the case. Things started out bad for Florida State. But, you can tell a lot. You can tell a lot about a team, I think, when things start to go bad. How does that team respond? How do the coaches respond? How do the players respond to the coaches? Do they respond, right? It couldn't have started much worse for Florida State. I remember talking during the first month of the season that Florida State could be looking at like a 2-10 season. I mean, you look at some of the losses they had early on, it did not look good for Florida State. Now, they're not, some elite team suddenly now today, but it didn't fall apart for Florida State like a lot of people, myself included, thought it might, right? I think that's a sign that the coaching situation there is in pretty good shape. The players did not give up on the season. They didn't throw the towel in. They've gotten some wins down the stretch here that a lot of people didn't think they would get. And another big sign about where a program may be headed. So you have coaching stability. Back to the stock market thing here. When you're trying to decide Florida State, Miami, if they're stocks, which one am I investing in for a return over the next 3 to 5 years? I think you have to look at coaching stability, right? I think that plays a part in how successful or unsuccessful you think a program may be over the next 3 to 5 years. I think then you have to look at recruiting, right? Recruiting is the lifeblood of any college football program. Without it, you're not going to consistently have good seasons. You may have a season here or there where you end up with a junior and senior heavy team. Maybe you've got a really good quarterback or something like that. And you see this at places like Northwestern, Minnesota, Iowa State, these one-off seasons where they'll win 10, 11 games and back to 6, 7, 8 wins, whatever. Florida State is recruiting very well, and that's surprising. Florida State is actually the best recruiting. So I think Florida State has the best coaching situation going forward for the next 3 to 5 years because Norvell's not getting fired. I don't hear very many, if any, Florida State fans running around wanting him to be fired. Whereas with Florida and Miami, you do see that. And when you look at recruiting, Florida State is ahead right now, at least for this current class, in recruiting, ahead of both Florida and Miami. They're a few spots ahead of Florida in the national rankings. Miami is the worst of the three in recruiting. Miami's down in the 60s nationally in recruiting. That's not good. We're 4 weeks away from National Signing Day, the early signing day in December. Miami is sucking hind tit on the recruiting angle of this debate, the stock debate. Which one do you want to invest in? They're 12th in the ACC, I think. Out of 14 teams, I mean, it's really bad. Florida State, really good class, top 10, top 15 class, a couple of 5 stars committed. And Florida is sort of hovering, again, in the middle there. So you look at Florida's coaching situation. They just fired their defensive coordinator. They just fired their offensive line coach, who was also the run game coordinator. And you say, well, they needed to fire him. They're going to get somebody good in there. Who are they going to get? Who are they going to get? A coordinator's tenure at a school is directly tied to the head coach. The head coach can decide to fire you at any time, like Dan Mullen just did. Or if the head coach gets fired, you're also going to be gone. When a coach is fired, people don't talk about this when they talk about coaches getting fired. It's not just a coach that is gone, it's the entire staff. So if you're an elite defensive coordinator somewhere, or even an elite position coach somewhere that's looking to become a defensive coordinator, and you get a phone call from Dan Mullen to come there to be the defensive coordinator, how long is that going to last? Dan Mullen is hanging by a thread at Florida. So I think the coaching situation, the coaching stability situation at Florida is not good. Miami, I think, is a little bit better, because even though the fans, I feel like a lot of the fans still want Manny Diaz fired, I don't feel like the school is actually going to do it. I'm not convinced Florida is going to keep Dan Mullen. I'm really not. And besides that, even if the school does want to keep Dan Mullen, there's always the possibility that Dan Mullen bolts for the NFL. So recruiting-wise, again, back to the stock market analogy. Which one do you want to invest in? Florida State, Florida, or Miami, if you're investing in one of those programs over the next 3 to 5 years? Well, from a coaching stability standpoint, I like Florida State. I think Florida is the worst coaching stability situation of the 3, and I think Miami's in the middle. From a recruiting standpoint, which, again, recruiting is a great indicator of how a team is going to perform in the future, right? Because those guys you're recruiting today are going to be scoring touchdowns or stopping other people from scoring touchdowns tomorrow. Florida State's in the best position right now recruiting-wise. So Florida State has a leg up over Florida and Miami, in my opinion, in coaching stability going forward for the next 3 to 5 years and recruiting going forward for the next 3 to 5 years. Miami, they're third out of the 3 in terms of recruiting. Florida is third out of the 3 in terms of coaching stability. I think the third thing maybe you need to look at is, what conference you're in or what division you're in, your general schedule. How easy is it to win 10 games at one place versus the other? Well, Florida's in the SEC, the SEC East in particular. Georgia's also in the SEC East. Tennessee appears to be getting a little bit better. And then you play LSU every year from the West, plus one other, random team from the West every year. Florida State and Miami are in the ACC. And you just look at the state of the ACC right now. It's absolutely pitiful. I don't think we realized how much Clemson was propping up the ACC until we saw them struggle this year. And you look around the rest of the ACC and there's just no one there to take the baton, right? We're sitting here trying to figure out whether the best team in the ACC is Pitt or Wake Forest. This would have been a prime opportunity for Florida State or Miami to step to the front of the line in the ACC. Clemson trending down, at least for this year. There are some people that think Clemson's run is over as far as national titles or top 5 finishes and making the playoffs and all that. I can't go that far. Clemson's not one of these teams that had one amazing year and then you can expect them to come back to reality like LSU in 2019. I don't think anybody outside of a few LSU fans expected LSU to have multiple seasons in a row where they were winning 11 and 12 games and making the playoffs and stuff like that. Clemson has proved they can do that over the last 5 to 6 years. So I give a team like Clemson the benefit of the doubt there as far as being able to return to that sooner rather than later. But even if that happens, Florida or Florida State and Miami, I think, are in a better position scheduling-wise and conference-wise to be a better team over the next 3 to 5 years than Florida is because of the overall competition in the SEC versus the ACC. So I'm curious what you guys think in the comments section. Again, if Florida, Florida State, and Miami were stocks, and you were looking to invest in one of those stocks for a return on your money over the next 3 to 5 years, in other words, who's going to be better over the next 3 to 5 years? Florida, Florida State, or Miami? In my opinion, and it might seem like I just picked this phone up and started yelling into it today, I've actually been thinking about this for a couple hours today and looked a bunch of stuff up with the recruiting and that, and tried to figure out, okay, what factors do I need to consider when I'm trying to decide who might be better between those three schools over the next 3 to 5 years. And I came up with coaching stability or instability, recruiting, and your schedule. How difficult is it to win 10 plus games? And I clearly think it's easier to win 10 games in the ACC than it is the SEC, at least the way those two conferences are right now. So if I had to invest in one of those three programs for a return on my money over the next 3 to 5 years, I would probably go with Florida State. I think they have the most stable coaching situation of the three. They clearly have the best recruiting of the three right now. Florida slightly below them. Miami a mile back in recruiting. Miami, I was surprised actually when I looked up Miami's recruiting and saw them in the 60s. 3 weeks to go, 4 weeks to go till early signing day. Not looking good for Miami. And then scheduling, I think Florida or Florida State and Miami, I think, have an advantage in scheduling in conference over Florida, because I think they have an easier path to 10 plus wins being in the ACC than Florida does being in the SEC. So, considering all those things and sort of, Miami and Florida State were terrible the first half of this season. Players had all the reason in the world to kind of just cash it in, and they didn't. Miami is playing better now than they were at the beginning of the season. Florida State is playing better now than they were at the beginning of the season. Florida has quit. Florida quit last year after the SEC championship game, and they have quit this year in the middle of the regular season. The players have quit on the coach. The players have quit on the team. Not looking good. So I would invest in Florida State. If I was going to invest in one of those three programs, who's going to sort of give me the biggest return on my investment over the next 3 to 5 years? Right now, I'd probably have to put my money on Florida State. And it sounds weird to say because they've been the worst of the three for the last 3 to 5 years. But they appear to have finally found the right coach, in my opinion. They're clearly doing what they need to do on the recruiting trail. And the team is playing hard for that coach in a season that in the end is not going to mean all that much by Florida State standards. And the team is still going out there every week and giving it everything they have. And I wanted to make this video before we see the Florida State versus Miami game this weekend and then the Florida State versus Florida game the last weekend of the regular season, because obviously once those two games are played, I think we'll have a better indication. But I'm not going to, right now, the Florida State-Miami game, to me, is a hard one to pick right now. I could see either team winning that game. That's going to be a good game because, like I said, both of those teams are still all in on this season. That hasn't been the case the last few years. Florida State's been just god-awful. And it's been almost not even worth watching the Florida State-Miami game. I think it'll be a really good game this year, coming up this weekend. Florida State at Florida at the end of the year, if they were playing right now, I'd pick Florida State. I'm curious to see what Florida does the next 2 weeks against two really bad teams. Samford and Missouri are their next two opponents. And then they get Florida State to wrap things up. But have you watched Florida State play the last month? Have you watched Florida play the last month? Who appears to be getting the most out of what they have right now between those two? Florida State. Florida State. So I would invest in Florida State. If it was a stock market deal, I would invest in Florida State over the next 3 to 5 years looking for a return on my money. I would invest in Florida State. And the team that I would be least likely to invest in over the next 3 to 5 years of those three would be Florida. I don't see any scenario imaginable where Dan Mullen is still coaching at the University of Florida in 3 to 5 years. I don't see it. I don't see it at all. It's just a matter of time before he either gets fired or bolts for the NFL. Mike Norvell, I could see him there in 3 to 5 years. Manny Diaz, I could see him at Miami in 3 to 5 years. Now he's going to have to put some good seasons together. But anyway, give me your ranking down below. Well, 1 being the team you would invest your money in, 2 being the second, and 3 being the third. For me, it's Florida State, then Miami, and the Gators. Sucking hand tit. Again.